What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we have a Monkees Top 10 Songs Reactions brought to us by our friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, D. Thank you, D. I always appreciate you and your expertise in curating these lists of these classic artists. The only thing we have up from the Monkees somehow is we did the Headquarters album review way back in April of 2020, so it's been a very long time. Let's jump into some background info. Look, we could go on forever and ever on background info. I read all kinds of stuff, but D provided a nice summary. I'm going to use his summary. It's his list, and he's the expert here, but I know we could go into Monkees stuff. I'd go into an hour-long story all about the Monkees, but we'll intertwine other information about them throughout these songs, so let's check it out. D says the Monkees were originally conceived by Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider as a sitcom about four men trying to be a successful rock and roll band. It was inspired by A Hard Day's Night and helped, both by the Beatles, of course, which helped create the perception of them being the prefab four. They sold the project to Screen Gems after several auditions, including one by Stephen Stills. They hired Mickey Dolenz, Michael Nesmith, Peter Tork, and Davy Jones to play the roles. They also hired Don Kirshner to supervise the music on the show. Kirshner didn't see them as a band, rather as four actors with limited musical skills. They all had musical backgrounds before they were hired, so they didn't take well to this. The music was composed by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, Goffin and King, Neil Diamond, as well as others. We'll get into that in some of these songs. Studio musicians, including the famous Wrecking Crew, were hired to play on the recordings, and the band members were brought in afterwards to record the vocals. When their first album was released, the packaging was produced in such a way as to appear that the four actors were playing on it, especially since no other musicians were credited. The band took exception to this, especially Nesmith, because it led to criticism that they weren't playing on the album. Their first single, Last Train to Clarksville, was released in August 1966. The television show debuted in September, and the first album, The Monkees, was released in October, so they really got the boom, boom, boom. All three were tremendous hits. The single and the album both went to #1 on Billboard. The album stayed there for 13 weeks and remained on the chart for 78 weeks. As it became more known, the fact that they did not play instruments led to wide criticism, just as the band thought it would. To the ejection of Don Kirshner, the band were sent on tour for the first time in December of '66. So it's all happening fast, right? All in a 6-month period here. The friction between Nesmith and Tork versus Kirshner got even worse when the second album, More Than Monkees, was released in January of '67 without the band's knowledge. They found out about it on the aforementioned tour. The album went straight to #1, stayed there for 18 weeks. That month, there was a meeting with the band, Kirshner, and Cold Gems, the record label's lawyer, Herb Mullis, for the purpose of distributing $250,000 of royalty checks and gold records to the band members. Nesmith gave an ultimatum to change the way the music was selected and recorded. Mullis, the lawyer, reminded him they were under contract. Ultimately, Nesmith punched a hole in the wall and said, "That could have been your face." There's also a story that Kirshner brought the song Sugar Sugar to the band, which they refused to play, but that story is in dispute. The following month, Kirshner released A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, which was written by Neil Diamond. Violating one of the terms of his agreement with Cold Gems, he was fired because he released it and he had an album, the 45, the single sleeve, without their knowledge. So he was not allowed to have that kind of control, so that's what got him fired. With that, the band had almost complete control over the music they played. In May of '67, they released Headquarters, the one that we reviewed, the first studio album where the band were the primary players. It also went to #1 on Billboard, but only for 1 week, as the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's was released and put it at #2 for 11 weeks. In November of the same year, they released Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited, which was their fourth straight #1 album and also their last. So that was in November. And remember, this time period had just started out in August of the previous year when their first single was released, right? So, and then the TV show was in September and the album in October. So here it is, 11 or 13 months later in the following November, and they've already got 4 #1 records, and they've done all of this stuff. Kind of like the Beatles, you've got to cram all this stuff into a short period of time. The TV show completed its second season. There was little interest in it as a third, as the plots were beginning to get repetitive. It was canceled in February of 1968. In April, they released their next album, The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees. It went to #3 on Billboard, becoming their first album not to reach #1 yet. #3 at that time especially was still awfully good. Right after the TV show was canceled, they decided to make a movie. It was to be directed by Bob Rafelson, produced by Bert Schneider, and written by Rafelson and a relatively unknown Jack Nicholson. It was filmed between February and May and released in November. It was a commercial failure mainly because it was not aimed at the band's core audience up to that point. It has since developed a cult following due to its stream of consciousness, style, and humor. Shortly after Far East tour in December of '68, Peter Tork left the band, citing exhaustion, but perhaps due more to tensions within the group. So, I mean, we're like less than 2.5 years into this whole ride. The remaining members released 2 more albums in 1969 with decreasing success. In April of '70, Michael Nesmith left the band. He continued with a new group called Michael Nesmith and the First National Band, which is one of the early country rock bands. Mickey Dolenz and Davy Jones released one last Monkees album, Changes, in June of '70, which did not chart until 1986 when they had a little bit of a resurgence. From '75 until 2021, there have been several reunion tours and albums released with differing members contributing. Davy Jones, or David Jones, died of a heart attack in February of 2012. Peter Tork died of cancer in February of 2019. And we just lost, at the time of this film, it was only 3 weeks ago, Michael Nesmith died of heart failure in December of 2021. They sold over 75 million records worldwide. We're going to jump into this list. I'll just tell you, like, coming into this channel, I didn't know anything about the Monkees. I knew a few of their hits. I know a couple songs on here. And, I knew that Davey was on the Brady Bunch, that from watching repeats when I was a little kid. That's what I knew. I kind of knew that they were a fake band. I didn't have any idea of the success they had or how they made themselves into musicians. I had no idea the insane success that they had. So this is going to be a fun list because I don't know several of these songs. And we're going to start it off with Valerie, You See It Below, from the Byrds, the Bees, and the Monkees in 1968. Written by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart for the Monkees. Number 3 in the U.S., number 1 in Canada, number 12 in the U.K. Screen Gems president and music supervisor Don Kirshner asked Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart if they had any, quote, girls' name songs to be used in the Monkees television series. After claiming that they had finished a song, Boyce and Hart actually improvised this song on their way to Kirshner's office. He was pleased with their work, and Valerie was recorded with Boyce and Hart producing the original sessions in August of '66. The single would be the band's last American top 10 hit, their last to receive a push from their television series, and their last to be certified gold. And I forgot to tell you at the start, but the music will not be in this video. Check out the Vimeo link below if you want to listen along with me. If you already know these songs, just want to know what I think, hang around. I'll have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, D. Valerie, just a great sound to it, almost a Beatlesque sound to it. At times, there's a lot of music of this time. Lyrically, you can see why these guys wrote it on the way to the office because there's really not much to it. It's all about the way he delivers Valerie. It starts out with the chorus, Valerie, I love her, Valerie. Verse 1, there's a girl I know who makes me feel so good, and I couldn't live without her even if I could. And then you get the chorus. Verse 2, she's the same little girl who used to hang around my door, but she sure looks different than the way she looked before. And he talks about, I call her Valerie, I love her, Valerie. So there's not a lot to it. There's a great guitar in here. The percussion is nice. The drumming sounds like we might have a little tambourine in there as well, but enjoyed that one. Now we're up to number 9. We got Words from the Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited in 1967. What a mouthful of a album title. Written by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart. An early version by the Leaves appeared on their 1966 album, Hey Joe. Mickey Dolenz shared lead vocals of Peter Tork. It peaked at number 11 in the U.S., marking the highest charting single with Tork's lead. It was the B-side to the single Pleasant Valley Sunday, which may or may not appear later. On the album's liner notes, co-writer Tommy Boyce recalled that the song's inspiration was a letter that he and Bobby Hart had received from a lonely girl that they invited to a hayride after an appearance on American Bandstand 2 weeks before. The letter stated, Tommy and Bobby, words all capitalized, can never express how nice you two were to me at the hayride. In contrast with that thankful note, though, of the letter, the song tells about the imminent breakup between the narrator and his girlfriend after discovering that she was a liar that had always told him words with lies inside. All right, let's check it out. Words, a pretty complex song, actually, arrangement-wise, very nicely done instrumentally. I'm not going to get into who's playing what instruments and all that because as it evolves, they're playing their own instruments, but there's a lot of controversy on who's playing what where, and I just decided, I researched it all, but just decided to kind of leave all that out. But, Peter Tork does share the lead vocals here, sort of, but he only sings the second and fourth lines in the first and second verse. Mickey carries this song, but it does add a nice little texture and difference to this song with Peter coming in, that kind of real dichotomy between his and Mickey's voice. But it is just basically she's lying to him, and he's onto it. But as so often is the case, He doesn't want it to be true. Like in the chorus, words that never were true, spoken to help nobody but you, words with lies inside, but small enough to hide till your plan was through, till she was done with him. Oh, I'm standing here, strange, strange voices in my ears. I feel the tears, but all I can hear are those words that never were true. So my man is crushed, right? Mickey is crushed. Let's move on to track number 8. You see it below. I'm Not Your, in parentheses, Stepping Stone, from More of the Monkees, that album that was released when they didn't, without their permission, in 1967. Written again by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart. First recorded by Paul Revere and the Raiders, and appeared on their album Midnight Ride, released in May of 1966. Remember, back then, we're just bringing out versions of songs from all different artists right away, rapid fire. Released in November 66, it became the first Monkees B-side to chart, reaching number 20 in the U.S. Mickey has the lead vocal on this. The Monkees version is featured in the romp segments of several episodes of the group's television series. It also has been heard in episodes of shows such as The Queen's Gambit and Zoo, and that's one of the things we got to point out here, and you'll come across it in some of these songs. They're able to play it on TV through multiple episodes. It builds a familiarity with the audience because everybody's watching the show. It comes on the radio. It all works synergistically to really put you over to massive fame and success in a hurry. I'm Not Your Stepping Stone. Really good bass work on this song. The drumming is nice as well, but really good bass and drumming. The rhythm section is on point in this. I thought Mickey's vocals are pretty dang strong too, man. The song was arranged nicely, you know, and he's not her stepping stone. Basically talking about she came from nothing, and when she was first with him, you know, she really had nothing. When I first met you, girl, you didn't have no shoes, but now you're walking around with your front page news. You've been careful about the friends you choose, but you won't find my name in your book of who's who's. So he was good enough for her when she was nothing, so to speak, in the way the world views nothing. But now that she's ascending up the ladder, she doesn't want anything to do with him. He's letting her know, I'm not your stepping stone. So a nicely done tune there. Now we're up to Circle Sky from Head in 1968. Written by Michael Nesmith. It is written and performed in a style reminiscent to the work of musician Bo Diddley. Lyrics are impressions of sights and sounds on a Monkees tour, while Hamilton Smiling Down refers to a Hamilton music stand used for rehearsals and recording. While the movie Head, because this is the movie they had made, included a song performed live by the Monkees in Salt Lake City, Utah during a free show, the original soundtrack album instead substituted a studio recording made by Nesmith and session musicians. An unexplained decision became a major source of tension in the group. Obviously, we're listening to the studio session. Circle Sky, I don't even know what I think of this song, but I'm glad that Dee included it. It's so much different. I would have never dreamed this was the Monkees. And really, it's Michael Nesmith. He's on percussion on here, on organ, on vocals, a little bit on guitar, but I imagine the guys doing the Bo Diddley type stuff is the session musicians, and maybe that's why they went with this version. Maybe the live version that's in the movie, once you put it on the album, didn't quite sound as tight as they wanted it to sound, but his vocals, you know, his vocals aren't fantastic, but they're mixed to the back, and it all just kind of works together. And this is Circle Sky, Telling Lies, Here I Stand, At Demand. So remember, it's observations from being on tour, because it looks like we made it once again. Yes, it looks like we made it once again, because I imagine, you know, the crowds are overflowing. Color sound is all around, wingtip smiles, seas for miles, and it looks like we made it once again. So just kind of that motif with it. But like I said, not sure if I like it or I don't like it, but I find it interesting. I'm glad it's on here because it doesn't sound anything like what I know the Monkees as. Now you see it, number 6, I'm a Believer, from More of the Monkees in 1967. And I'll tell you something, boys and girls, there are hit songs, there are massively hit songs, and then there's a song that hits like this, one of the biggest hits of all time on the charts, which I'll get to in a minute. This one was written by Neil Diamond, who also plays acoustic guitar on the track, with lead vocals by Mickey. Number 1 for 7 weeks, becoming the biggest selling single of 1967. There's a lot of heavy hitters in 1967, not just the lads from Liverpool. Because of over 1 million advanced orders, it went gold within 2 days of release. It's one of the fewer than 40 all-time singles to have sold more than 10 million physical copies worldwide. It also went to number 1 in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Ireland. It appeared in 4 consecutive episodes of their television series in December 1966. Like I said, that's the way to just have people clamoring for it. Diamond also suggested the song to the Fifth Estate, who recorded it as a 1967 album cut. A recording by Neil featuring additional lyrics appears on his 1979 album, September Morn. It is listed at number 48 on Billboard's all-time top 100. That's as of 2018. A lot of people know this song because the group Smash Mouth did it in the movie Shrek. This is just a great feel-good tune. I'm a Believer. It just works all the way around. The session musicians on this are absolutely on point. It's arranged so well. And basically, it's kind of about love at first sight. Some people think it's mocking love at first sight. But he's basically saying through the lyrics that, it hasn't worked out for him. I thought love was only true in fairy tales, meant for someone else, but not for me. Love was out to get me. That's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams. And in that chorus, then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. When that chorus kicks in, just everybody knows it. You got to sing along with it. I tried to sing quietly along with it. I don't want to subject you to that. But just, like I said, it's an iconic song, man. It's the number 48 song of all time in the United States, like all time chart success. That is, you just don't come across those very much. Now we're already to the top half. These songs go quickly. Remember, it's the 60s. Almost every song is under 3 minutes. A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You from the Headquarters album in 1967. So I have heard this song, but I don't remember because I've only heard that album a few times when we reviewed it. This one's also written by Neil. He was given the shot to write the follow-up since he wrote I'm a Believer. That's another whole story I won't get into. Lead vocal was Davy Jones's first on a Monkees single. Went to 2 in the U.S. Diamond never recorded this song as he'd done with I'm a Believer, remember, but he did perform it during his live shows of 1967. A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You. The guitar work on here was fantastic. The hand clapping, some organ and stuff on there. I'm not real sure what I think of, but a well-written song by a young Neil Diamond, who's a fantastic songwriter, very underrated in music history for that. Walk out, girl, don't you walk out. We've got things to say. Talk out. Let's have it talked out and things will be okay. I love the chorus. Girl, I don't want to fight. I'm a little bit wrong. You're a little bit right. So I guess how you got to set this up, boys. I'm a little bit wrong and you're a little bit right. I said, girl, you know that it's true. It's a little bit me. It's a little bit you too. And that might be where it all goes sideways. I don't know. But, he's taking all the blame first. Don't know just what I said wrong. But girl, I apologize. Don't go. Here's where you belong, so wipe the tears from your eyes. So he's saying, don't know what I did wrong, but I did apologize. So he's kind of like, I didn't really do anything, but I'm going to take the blame to try to make this thing better. But you are a little bit responsible for it. So enjoyed the songwriting on that one. Now at number 4, we got Listen to the Band from the Monkees' Present, 1969, our latest song that appears on here. Written by Michael Nesmith. It's the first time he sang lead vocals on a Monkees single A-side. Went to 63 in the U.S. Into that band, man. Everybody's cheering. So I thought Michael sounded much better for me vocally than he did in Circle Sky, our 7th selection on this list. The idea of the song is that he's broke up with his girl, he feels bad, but the music makes him feel better, at least while it's going on. I think we've all been there. So, hey, Mercy Woman plays a song and no one listens. I need help. I'm falling again. Play the drum a little louder. Tell me I can live without her if I only listen to the band. Weren't they good? They make me happy. I think I can make it alone. And a well-written song there, kind of clever. Enjoyed that. Enjoyed pretty much everything about the instrumentation. I like the mixing at the end with the band and the cheering for the band. Now you see it below. We're going to Pleasant Valley Sunday. It's number 3 on this list if you're scoring at home. From the Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited 1967 album. Number 3 in the U.S., written by Jerry Goffin and Carole King. Most famous for the version recorded by the Monkees in 1967. This one. Carole stated in her autobiography that after she and her then husband, Jerry, because Jerry was her husband at the time, had earned enough money from songwriting royalties, they moved from New York City to West Orange, New Jersey. But Jerry disliked their suburban life and wrote lyrics to document this feeling that would eventually become this song. The lyrics are a social commentary on status symbols, creature comforts, life in suburbia, and keeping up with the Joneses. Pleasant Valley Sunday, a lot of cool stuff on this. A little background more on this. The band were actually playing this song. Peter Tork played the piano. Mike played the famous opening guitar riff. Chip Douglas, a former member of the Turtles, produced this album. He played bass and came up with that guitar part, which I thought it sounded very familiar. He based it on the Beatles' I Want to Tell You. Mike and Mickey handled the vocals on this track. Peter Tork talked about this in 1982. He said, a notion of mine that I was pleased with took over at one point, and that was having 2 guys sing in unison rather than one guy doubling his voice. So you got Mike, who was a real hard-nosed character, and Mickey, who's a real baby face. And these 2 voices blended and lent each other qualities. It's 2 separate voices. It's not 2 separate voices singing together. It's really a melding of the 2 voices. Listening to that record later on was a joy. And Mickey and Peter both cited this one as their favorite Monkees song. Just a really, really well done vocally. And that's the thing that stood out for me. That's why I had to go search for a little more info. I've researched these songs a lot, but I had to have a little bit more on this one. It is just about the suburbs, you know, the chorus, another Pleasant Valley Sunday, charcoal burning everywhere, rows of houses that are all the same, and no one seems to care. So the bridge later on, creature comfort goals, they only numb my soul. So you can tell Jerry, who's writing this, Goffin was like, dude, this is not for me, and make it hard for me to see. My thoughts all seem to stray to places far away. I need a change of scenery. Jerry's wanting to go back to the city. Just a really well done song. Well, we're almost to numero uno. We got one more to get out of the way. You big Monkees fans probably had it down to these two songs, so now you kind of know. But we got Last Train to Clarksville from the Monkees, their 1966 debut. It releases their debut single in August of 1966, written again by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart. Lead vocals were performed by Mickey, who, by the way, was their drummer. It was featured in 7 episodes of the band's television series, the most for any Monkees song. Hart got the idea for the lyrics when he turned on the radio and heard the end of Paperback Writer by the Beatles, of course. Thinking Paul McCartney was singing Take the Last Train, Hart decided to use the line himself after he found out that McCartney was actually singing Paperback Writer. Hart knew that the Monkees TV series was being pitched as a music/comedy series in the spirit of the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night, and was hoping that by emulating the Beatles, the song might become a successful single. He included a distinctively rhythmic lyric and wrote in the "Oh, no, 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 oh, no, no, no" lyric as a response to the Beatles' famous "Yeah, yeah, yeah," looking for a guitar riff to match it in the studio. The lyrics tell of a man phoning the woman whom he loves, urging her to meet him at a train station in Clarksville. Now, he couldn't text her back in the day, boys and girls, before he must leave, possibly forever. There's no explicit reference to war in the song, but its last line, and I don't know if I'm ever coming home, many think was an indirect reference to a soldier leaving for the Vietnam War. Let's check it out. Last Train to Clarksville, by far the most Beatlesque sounding song for a reason. You definitely hear tinges of Paperback Writer in there. Sounds fantastic, man. You know, take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30 because I made your reservation. Don't be slow. Oh, no, no, no. So that catchiness there, because I'm leaving in the morning and I must see you again. We'll have one more night together till the morning brings my train and I must go. Oh, no, no, no. And I don't know if I'm ever coming home. And then just kind of repeating the chorus in there with a couple different lines on there. But yeah, man, just a fantastic song. It could have been number one, but it wasn't, because this other classic, which I would have had at number one, I only knew a handful. Well, I didn't even know a handful of these songs. I knew Daydream Believer. I knew I'm a Believer. I've heard Last Train to Clarksville maybe once. But this would have been my number one of the songs I knew. We got Daydream Believer from the Byrds, the Bees, and the Monkees in 1968. Written by Jon Stewart before he left the Kingston Trio. It's originally recorded by the Monkees with David Jones singing the lead. 1 in the U.S., their last number 1 in the U.S., 5 in the U.K. Jon Stewart wrote it as the third in a trilogy of songs about suburban life, recalling, "I remember going to bed thinking, what a wasted day. All I've done is daydream." And from there, I wrote the whole song. I never thought it was one of my best songs. Not at all. And according to Billboard Hot 100 chart historian Joel Whitburn, I mean, I guess there's guys who are chart historians. I kind of am an amateur chart historian, as is one of our other patrons, Joseph. Shout out to you and the Hot 100 knowledge. The recording was originally scheduled to be the B-side of the song Love Is Only Sleeping, featuring lead vocals by Michael. However, a week before the release, it was discovered that the European single masters for Love Is Only Sleeping were not ready. But the masters for Daydream Believer were. So a last-minute switch meant that Daydream Believer now became the A-side, and Going Down became the B-side. Sometimes in music you'll find that mistakes are when things go wrong or when the best stuff is brought forward. Number 1 on Dee's list, Daydream Believer. Daydream Believer, number 1 on Dee's Monkees list. And it would have been number 1 on mine from the few songs that I knew. There's not much to the song itself when you really dive into it. There's 2 little small verses. It finishes with the chorus 4 times. The chorus is in there one other time, but it starts out, "Oh, I could hide beneath the wings of the bluebird as she sings." Just the way Davey delivers it, right? The 6 o'clock alarm would never ring, but it rings in her eyes. Wipe the sleep out of my eyes. My shaven razor's cold and it stings. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream Believer, and Homecoming Queen. You know, it finishes with the 4 choruses, as I mentioned, but there's an instrumental interlude in between those after 2 of those 4. I saw that Peter Tork actually arranged this song, was responsible for all of that. So that is fantastic. The only one that he did on the entire album, and he didn't need to do another one because that was awesome. Now we're getting into my favorite tracks. Just an excellent list put together by D. I liked all the tracks. My faves, first I'll go honorable mention, A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You from the Headquarters album, 67, because I like the lyricism on it. Maybe it's not my favorite vocally, but I really like the lyricism. And my faves are going to be very stereotypical, but man, they're faves for a reason. They're iconic for a reason. I'm a Believer, Pleasant Valley Sunday, Last Train to Clarksville, and of course, Daydream Believer. So thank you, D. Always appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for listening along. Let me know what your favorites are down below. And if you'd like to support us in any way, the way D does, the patrons make this thing go. Check out the Patreon link below or on the end screen that is about to hit. And I will put that Headquarters video on there on that end screen too. You can just click on it if you want to see mine and Trey's review of that one. Until next time, guys, I will see you.